We're live, I think. Yes. Okay, we're live. Okay. So I think we can make a start. If anyone is watching on YouTube, welcome to the standing group on political technology business meeting for this year's conference. We are with a few happy members here in the meeting room. My name is Stefanis Xadaktilos, University of Surrey, joined by Josh Elkin in University College in Dublin. Us two are today present in person at the conference, but we have another three members in our steering committee. That's Bernd Schlipphack in Germany, Catherine Thomas, who just now moved to Aberdeen, and of course Les here in Lausanne. Quite a bit of a variety of people. We all work on different elements of political methodology. We have different expertise, both quantitative and qualitative. And originally, the purpose of the standing group was to actually reinvigorate this kind of discussion around political methodology, its applications, innovations, new techniques, all techniques that have just become fashionable again, or something like that, or old problems that have been tackled with new techniques, and old techniques with new problems nowadays. We have a variety of members in terms of their location and their states in their career. So we have a good number of sort of PhD students in early careers, researchers, but also more established senior scholars in the group. We are the second largest group, as I said before, with about 320 members. Us in the steering committee, we've been there for 3 years now, all of us, except for Bernd, who's there for 2 years. So we've seen the development of the group, but also the kind of different topics that we've dealt with through the years. We have always had good representation at the General Conference, both in terms of panels, qualitative methods, but also quantitative methods. So we've run sections on experimental methods, on surveys, on interviews. We had some sort of content analysis, discourse analysis, this type of thing, but always with the view of seeing how people use or develop a method and not necessarily the actual sort of research agenda, I don't know, doing elections or public policy or something. I guess that is from me as a matter of introduction. Shall we cover a few of the activities that we've done for this past year? Yeah. So we have tried to sort of develop a range of activities that go beyond the standard conference at the ECPR General Conference. And so we have collaborated with other groups on political methodology and in conferences elsewhere to organize either ad hoc workshops on particular methods, seminars. We have participated actively in the ECPR method school as well. We had one, at least, no, two, because Leah and Catherine have both taught at the ECPR method school. We have also done a session on lunchtime, how do we call it? Convincer session, which was a lunchtime session for PhD students, trying to get a more of a one-to-one type of advice on their research projects in terms of the methodology they're using and the research design aspects. So there is and we also participated in the Trilander conference. Yeah, this year. That's right. Yeah. So we're trying to sort of be as visible as possible in different locations, not just the main ECPR conference, but we're always looking for ideas to expand on the kind of activities that we can do. We are also running a blog on our website, which is quite quiet at the moment, I would say, because it's very difficult to convince people to write something, especially that's methodologically driven, because the idea is for this to be something accessible for a variety of people with different knowledge levels and so on and so forth. So we're still welcoming contributions if any of you has a little methodological note that they want to just have it out there, or a summary of the things that they've done methodologically in a particular paper. What we also do quite frequently is that we will try to connect people through different means. So we would advertise jobs and opportunities, training sessions, things like that take place in order for that message to go across. We would happily put up on the website links to publications from our members if they are methodologically oriented. And we have also built a section on the website with data archives, where we try to sort of pull together different resources that are available and free to use, but people may not necessarily know it. So yes, we do have a link to the GACES archives, but everybody knows that. But there are fewer. There are a few outlets out there that people don't know about, with access to data sets and databases, or online software that is now free and available. So that, in a nutshell, is the kind of things that we keep ourselves busy with as a steering committee.
Yeah, I think that's more or less it.
Yeah.
So maybe in sort of broader context, ECPR has been trying to revamp how they work with standing groups and how closely they're integrated. And so our standing group has also been closely engaged with that process. So they had a set of retreats now. We were at the first one, where they discussed the role of standing groups in the ECPR and what it can mean, etc. And I think so. One of the things that comes out of that is that there will be a somewhat stronger role of standing groups when it comes to conference, especially this conference, when it comes to scheduling panels, etc. And so this year we weren't particularly successful. We don't have any panels this year, but all the years we had a very good series of panels. And so one thing that we can definitely do as a standing group, and that we really appreciate input as well, if you have good ideas for a team, for a section, if these things are organized through a standing group, they have a much higher chance of actually getting accepted and ending up in the program.
And we also endorse the joint sessions. Yeah.
So with the general conference, the idea is that a very large chunk of the panels end up through standing groups. With the joint sessions, there are many more standing groups than there are workshops, so they couldn't do the same thing. But it is still the case that if you have an endorsement from a standing group, you have a much better chance of getting on that. So if you have an idea for yourself that is sort of methodologically related and you want to do a workshop in the joint sessions, you should always approach us and see if we can endorse it. We can only endorse one, so you need to be careful, but that really increases your chances.
So we do run a selection process in case there is more than one. So we review the proposals for the workshops and we communicate, and also we provide feedback on how to improve the proposal in order to make it a little bit more accessible to the ECPR in terms of the purposes, because there are specific guidelines that the ECPR follows in terms of the composition of the workshop members, the joint session members, the locations, the gender balance, things like that, that we can also help out with.
And I think we've also become a little bit more active on social media in particular.
Oh yeah.
So
the Facebook
we do
group,
more in terms of just communication.
Is that the name of this group?
ECPR methods.
Yeah, okay.
Green check.
I'm just gonna check the,
We should probably mention the elections. Okay?
yes. that would be the
So
final.
Vanus mentioned that we've all been there for 2 years. Actually, our term is 3 years.
Yeah.
So that means that the entire committee is reaching the end of their term. And so there will be elections.
Mhm.
So
I have been there a little bit longer because I was there 2 years before the
Sure.
previous, so yeah.
That's correct. Yeah,
So, and then the system called.
exactly. So in the email with the call for this particular meeting, there was also an attachment about the election. So if you're interested, you can find it.
So the ECPR methods group on Facebook has 846 members. So that's almost 3 times the number of actual ECPR people that we have on the formal side of the group. Because effectively on the Facebook group, there can be a number of like master students, as well as undergraduate students, people who do not belong to ECPR institutions, and they just need to have a little bit of access. So it's a much more social element than the actual standing group membership.
And it's great if you have to promote some, if you have an activity
Yeah.
yourself that is methods related, you can certainly use our Facebook page to.
And you can also post things. So things like job opportunities, we had fellowships, summer school announcements, particular papers, workshops, what have you. We have some interesting bits and pieces that come across all the time. So we have also launched the call for the election. That was part of the message that was sent out a couple of days ago. We are accepting nominations. So if you yourself are interested in joining the steering committee having a greater say in the way that the group is running and the kind of activity that you want to do, please do send your 500-word statement that we said.
I think it's something like that.
Yeah, so up to 500 words. So that we can collect all nominations, put them up on the ECPR platform of the standing group, and then there will be a link on the elections. If you are a member of the group, you will see a link on the elections under My Groups. You vote, we collect the votes. I think it's on a STV.
It's a single password
system, so consider this as the X Factor voting style. Then we announce the new committee when we finalize the results, and the new committee will start in January of next year, so 2020. I mean, some of us will stand again, some of us may choose not to stand again. So all positions are up for grabs, basically.
Yeah. Fair competition.
Yeah, and we don't have any problem in passing on the baton to people who have.
Exactly. And as a committee, we just meet about once a month or slightly less than that on Skype. So it's not a huge investment, but it depends on the things you want to present.
And we've had quite a bit of a challenge in setting up those meetings because people have been in different time zones. And when I'm saying time zones, I'm not referring to European time zones, but at some point, Josh was in Singapore, Catherine was in the States, we were in different time zones within Europe, the rest of us. So it was a bit of a challenge, but we've always made time to sort of discuss issues of the standing group on a regular basis with an agenda, with a certain plan of activities, with a delegation of work. I mean, there's no hierarchy that we followed in the steering committee. Everybody is doing their bit as much as they can and sort of sharing responsibility for organizing things. We usually try to do things in pairs so that one is pulling the other, that kind of thing. And this has worked so far in sort of bringing together some of the activities. Yeah, so that's it from us.
No, that's it from us, I think. So the main thing here is to get feedback.
Yeah.
Hear whether you have ideas or questions or suggestions.
You spent 2 days at the conference, maybe something interesting came up, or you got inspired by something to that we can do, some challenges that you face methodologically, and you desperately want something us to do about it. Not solve your problem, but maybe bring in an expert or
certain
organize
themes,
something.
Certain themes that you think that would be
Yeah.
nice for future panels.
I guess one suggestion could be to just have one political methodology panel anyway at each ECPR conference. I mean, I was looking for a methodology panel, didn't find one, so I just submitted it as an open.
Yeah.
Cause. So I think if you do that, you will always get submissions because there will always be more people who have a methodology.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the original idea is that we will try to focus or at least put the spotlight on a particular method or a set of methods or a particular tradition in order to actually make this work more like a networking meeting, also a kind of creating a community, that kind of thing. So last year, for example, in Hamburg, no, it was Hamburg that we did the survey, right?
Yeah.
We had something on methodological challenges in survey research. So that was very popular. We had 5 panels, all full. We had about 30 people presenting. So it was nice to see them connecting in a way that is, yeah, let's talk about our methodology, see what problems we've seen, see what we've achieved. Equally interesting was the section we ran in Montreal, which was on discourse analysis, because many people talk about it, but few people know how to do it in a meaningful way. So a lot of people that actually engage with the method and sort of advance it came together. We had some very interesting papers, and it was very well attended. Same thing when we did, that was the first sort of theme section we did, which was on old problems, new methods, old methods and problems. So that was a nice sort of mixture of more general papers that we tried to group together in panels according to their sort of focus.
Were those sort of organized in an organic way or by each committee?
No. We invited the papers, and we were lucky enough to be able to cluster papers together in a meaningful way.
Because it will be interesting. I mean, if there is no one like offering to be more proactive from the committee, because I'm sure most people have professors or have no people to send like a core paper like, hey, this conference, we want to organize a session on whatever cocktails or information theory or whatever research.
Yeah.
Because it happened on this, and I was looking for, okay, what can I learn about something methodological? And it was really scattered. There was a lot of promising out of the paper. They have been saying, yeah, so it will be interesting to be more proactive. I know it sounds like accusing, more proactive.
Are there any plans what to do as a team next general conference?
We have not decided this yet for 2 reasons. First of all, we need to wait for the call to open and sort of actually discuss it. But also, since the organizing committee may be changing in composition, some people may want to have a say into the discussions on what that team should be. We have some preliminary ideas that we've been discussing, but we don't want to tie ourselves to a particular thing without knowing who the people in the committee will be.
I think it's worth.
So we can involve them as well, yeah.
We can have a discussion in the committee, but I think it's worth reconsidering a little bit. So we work largely under the assumption that if you do not have a coherent team, you will not get accepted on the conference, like even though it's a standing group proposal. And this was like a relatively strong impression. So by being from a standing group, if we propose a certain theme, it has a much higher likelihood of getting in. But if you're just teamless, if you just say we have a section on methods, that, as far as I know, tends not to get accepted. However, at the same time, I see other standing groups having sets of panels that are really diverse in topics, and they get them on. So I think that assumption might be partly wrong. So I think we need to.
The art of, creating a title or theme that
Exactly.
is sufficiently broad, to basically get
That's right.
everything.
We've tried to do that, but so when we did, so for example, the experimental section that was in Prague, the theme was wide enough in terms of the areas where you could use that type of method, but we wanted to bring in people in 5 panels that all did experiments, so they could also learn from each other in the way they applied that technique and the kind of challenges. So, I mean, the idea is that we want to maybe focus on a tradition or a particular issue just in order to be able to bring in networks of people. So we will send the call more actively to people that we know are, working on specific issues that they know, someone who knows someone else, and they come together. But perhaps what's worth thinking about is having the theme, so the 3-4 areas that we are interested in, and perhaps we have a 4th one underneath that says, oh, by the way, all other methodological papers can also come together in a more open section. And I think we would be able to convince the organizers to give us 1 panel in addition. So that could be a good idea.
And what are the ideas that you've been discussing? I know this is not, that's nothing decided, but just on curiosity.
Yeah. So we've oscillated, from qualitative to quantitative, qualitative, and so on and so forth. So I think this time is something, we were thinking of something more quantitative oriented or something that is more mixed methods, because that's something that we haven't really covered as such. So we've done a lot of the more qualitative side of things. Obviously, things rotate according to interest, but this is something that we perhaps could focus on.
I have another question.
Yeah.
I've seen this now at a couple of conferences, and they also do it at the Methods Group. So meet the expert kind of format. So basically, you have a session, maybe half an hour, you have a room with different tables with different topics, like
Methods.
like experiments, methods, mixed methods, and then you have maybe 2 members of the standing group who happen to be at the conference, just being there, and people can just come and chat or ask. And it's quite a nice thing to do, especially in terms of networking, but also sometimes you get information that you would never get otherwise.
That's true. That's something that we try to do in the context of the summer school and the winter school.
Yeah.
With the convincer sessions. That was the actual idea, that members of the steering committee or members of the standing group that teach at the school would be there to give like a little bit of advice, provide some expertise, that kind of thing.
That's based on actual presentations.
Yes.
As opposed to the.
This would be
sit around
much more informal.
Much more
Just
informal,
a table
okay.
where people are there, and anyone can just drop in and go from table to table and ask questions.
Yeah, organize all these sessions have lunch break. Organize the methodology lunch break, or you are whoever is interested in methodology, whatever. Or the Monday we are gonna meet in 6 question rounds, sit to the table and discuss and work in a brief from the way.
Have you ever heard before about what kind of method that people are using?
Did you have blue poll? It's a nice idea. That's a good idea. Among our 240 members, we could find out better.
But we do have a very broad mixture because effectively we have the list, so we know who our members are. But there is definitely a very good mix. So it's not skewed one way or another in terms of the actual tradition. I think it's more or less a nice equal split.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea.
But it's a good idea we can do a poll like that and then match it against the earlier teams we have.
Yes, and see. Yeah, that's a good idea. So let's put down a few things. So one is the generic panel within the section. One was the
Focus on mixed methods.
the mixed methods, yeah. The type of cafe informal sort of meeting. That has to be a little bit more careful though, because people may just hear, oh, we have some methods experts, and they sort of all rush.
But if you have
So
a fixed,
so it
if you
was
have fixed
actually,
Yeah.
so it was, I taught at the ECPR summer school
Yeah.
that I had to sit there as an expert.
Yeah,
And
but on a
it's a-
particular method, you
Yeah, for a
see, so we
particular
need
method.
we
So
need
I
to
had,
make
like,
sure that the
yeah.
person we have is really.
Exactly, so
have
the way it
different-
works is that you have different big tables, and we were like, so I was sitting in the text analysis and big data table, there was a qualitative table next to us.
But that's
Big
easier.
table.
That's easier done at the method school
Yeah.
because you are there as an instructor, whereas in the context of a general
Yeah.
conference, it's a little bit harder because
It's
effectively
different.
people
You know, it can
people may not
always-
show up. I mean,
No, you can just write an email to the, Zen group members, hey, who of you goes to the conference? And then you can see, okay, do we have sufficiently, would you be willing to volunteer for this? Actually, if you give them a bit of wine, maybe,
That is also how ECPR.
the ECPR doesn't.
For the.
The ECPR does not have a budget for the standing groups.
It's actually really nice because
Yeah.
it doesn't require any preparation from anybody. You're just there, it's a good opportunity to meet these experts that you've always wanted to talk to. And for the experts, it's just easy because people just ask questions and you can just say something. You don't have to, it's not, there's no expectation in terms of something specific will be delivered. It's more just the conversation, really.
I thought of like completely different idea, but because you said that you have trouble like keeping your blog up, or that would be an idea. I mean, now I think PRX, maybe ECPR will also ECPR journals will publish more method stuff to just get summaries of the articles and past the author.
That's
I
what
think
we.
it's a lot on the LSD.
This is what we've been trying to do, right?
Sorry.
But in order to, because we don't have any gatekeeping capacity of some sort, right? It's an open blog.
No.
We invite people that we may think, oh, they've written a nice article, give us a summary. But then we end up mostly chasing up people to actually give us the blog at the end of the day. So it really needs to be someone who wants to do that. So it has to come organically from the group rather than us sort of trying to pull people's feet to, come, I think that's fun. Because that's what we found out, that with the few people that we've invited, we had to do a lot of chase up, and then the end result was not particularly exciting, or we had to do a lot of editing in order for this to be presentable, because then people could become quite esoteric in the way that they treated their own method, whereas this is more, I mean, the blog's purpose is for it to be accessible by people who are interested in methodology in general, so they can have like a basic understanding of something interesting and new that they may not come across before in a more accessible way. So it has been a little bit tough to keep the blog going, and this is where we rely to our members. I mean, at some point we were putting calls up, like in our regular communication, saying, oh, we accept things on the blog, and we got the occasional person that would write something, but it's not like people were sort of flocking or queuing up to get an entry into the blog. Precisely because we appreciate that people are busy with teaching, with research, with other admin that they do, and other obligations they have in terms of publishing. So it's not the current affairs blog where people just want to get some research out. So it's a methods blog, so it's a little bit less dynamic, if you see what I mean in terms of the rush to write something on it.
Talking from the top of my head, I think most of it is quantitative, so I probably use a lot of math explanation or kind of code. It will be interesting to have a space that is actually for the scientists, where you can just post, hey, work in this project and with this problem, but you are a methodologist, what do you suggest?
Okay.
You don't have to only post in a blog solution to say, hey, I published this paper that says X. You can also use that as a media to communicate. pose the problems that we have.
I mean, this has been the reason behind the Facebook group as well. So that people can actually post questions or introduce themselves in issues that they have, because we are a bit limited in the capabilities that the website itself has, because now this is based on the ECPR platforms for all standing groups. So there is limited functionalities, let's say, that we can use in terms of the interactivity. But we encourage people to use the Facebook groups and our Twitter page to kind of link with each other and see who's there and who isn't, and sort of ask questions, get ideas, maybe introduce a project, maybe look for collaborators. Hey, I'm doing a project on that. I'm looking for someone to do some coding with me for intercoded reliability here, and that kind of thing. I mean, you can be as creative as you like with the kind of tools that we have at our disposal. Mind you, standing groups no longer receive any funding from the ECPR. So as a direct budget, we have to put in business cases to organize bigger things. That was the idea that was put forward 3 years ago. So we are unable to pay for things like coffee breaks, receptions, maintaining a website that's more interactive and things like that. So we are also constrained in the kind of things that we can do. Having said that, though, we are looking for collaborations with other networks, so we can put together joint proposals to the ECPR to do something bigger, to maybe create some sort of infrastructure for X, Y, or Z.
You don't have to pay for the coffee. Just say that these people are going to be in the coffee shop in front of the conference. And if you
No. I'm saying I'm not talking about the informal sessions, but even for the business meeting, we used to have like a nice sort of working lunch as well. That was good for people to do things together, right? Or spend time together. Or we used to put up a reception in the earlier conferences. So it makes a difference in the way that you allow people to network in a more informal capacity.
I mean, if this is like there's a strong desire to have things, a cost action. I mean, if
That's
a very strong network.
That's the kind of thing, but we need people to be able to drive that kind of,
Yeah, somebody has to write that application.
because we are also, I mean, all the members of the standing group committees are doing this also in their spare time and out of their own passion about a particular subject area or a particular agenda. We also appreciate that we don't know everything. So we rely on our members, for example, to put themselves forward and volunteer to write something that we can sort of collaboratively work on, present it as a nice, I don't know, cost action maybe, or a business case to the ECPR, maybe bring 2 standing groups together, because we've done that before, to do something that's slightly bigger, maybe a workshop, two-day workshop, or a small conference or something like that. That would also be really nice. At some point, we had ideas about organizing a little academy, but then that fell through the cracks because of the different sort of constraints that the ECPR is putting on in terms of the competition with the summer school and so on and so forth. The location, the admin stuff, who controls the money as well. That was an issue. Who has the actual page for sort of registering and so on. So we've played around with a lot of ideas, but 5 minds are better than 1, but 320 minds are better than 5. In that sense, so we're happy to sort of hear the ideas, and as a steering committee, try to look for ways to do this, or be able to bend the rules of the ECPR It's always like a good challenge. We are troublemakers in the conveners meetings usually. We ask the tough questions. So I've kept the forum type interactive content. I've kept the cafe style, sort of like maybe speed dating type of activity. The mixed method sessions, the generic panel in the section, but also the bigger projects, ideas for bigger projects. But also, if you have an idea for one of those bigger projects, we are happy to give you the support to put it forward. We are happy to connect you with relevant people and sort of sponsor something in terms of an endorsement. Yeah. Anything else you want to add? That's it, I think. Any other comments? Any?
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for joining in last minute. We had a bit of a miscommunication with the organizers in terms of setting up the room. The original meeting was supposed to be held yesterday. We discovered quite late that it was not included in the program, so it was like, okay. But I think that works. So perhaps we can always try to use this kind of technology in the meetings, at the general conference, or maybe that's maybe a good idea. We can do once every blue moon. We can do like a live session.
I think we should do that.
Yeah, and ask people to connect for Q&A. Very good.
So thanks very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Doing this.
Yeah,
And for
and
your work in the field group.
I mean, it takes a little bit of time and commitment, but that's why we're 5, and that's why we're usually working in pairs, because we want to be as productive as possible in that context.
You're coming to the methodology panel, yeah.
I'm actually chairing and discussing another panel, so
Today is very Tuesday.
it's actually the paper that
Okay.
one of the papers.
Interviewing.
Yeah. Well, this was put together because our paper givers pulled out, and they had to collapse panels into one.
It's at 1550 hours, Institute of Romance Languages.
Yeah, that's the.
1, 2, 4.
So that's at the sort of other edge of the campus.
It should be fine.
It's not far away, but it's the other side of the campus. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I will try to.
Please. Go. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
What's the deadline for running?
It was in the
only
call.
now announced it, so it's
3rd of October.
Oh, okay.
There's a month.
Okay.
okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Is there already collaborations within the standing group?
In what sense?
Like a lot of research